In the Roman Empire, beauty was a serious business. It was a daily ritual, especially for a high-status noblewoman, a matrona. The goal was this very specific look, a super pale, flawless complexion that was a sign you didn't have to work in the sun, and these really vibrant, colorful lips that screamed health and vitality. It was this perfect mask, and it was put on with incredible care every single morning.
But what if that mask, that beautiful image of youth and perfection, was also a death sentence? Okay, let's really get into this, because that carefully crafted image hides a really dark secret. The very things these women used to project life and power were actually, believe it or not, instruments of a slow, creeping death. This is the story of lethal lipstick and the deadly price of beauty in ancient Rome.
So, welcome to what the Romans called the mundus muliebris, which basically means the world of women's adornment. In this world, the hunt for beauty was everything, and the color red, well, red was the ultimate status symbol. It was the color of blood, of power, of the gods themselves. But here's the paradox, the insane twist. To get that look of vitality on their lips, Roman women were using some of the most toxic stuff known to the ancient world.
To really understand what was going on, we have to treat this almost like a forensic investigation. We're going to open up the Roman woman's cosmetic kit, her makeup bag, and identify the murder weapons one by one. And all the evidence we need, it's right there in the chemistry.
Okay, our prime suspect is a mineral called Cinnabar. This stuff produced the most brilliant, most sought-after vermilion red you could imagine. It was so valuable, its price was literally fixed by Roman law. It was mined by slaves and criminals down in Spain, an assignment that was basically a delayed death sentence. And why? Because its main ingredient is mercury.
Now, pure cinnabar was incredibly expensive, so a second killer often got into the mix: red lead, also known as minium. It was a cheaper pigment, sometimes used on its own, but a lot of the time, dishonest merchants would mix it into the cinnabar to stretch their supply and make more money. This meant a lot of women were getting a double dose of poison, applying both mercury and lead directly to their mouths every single day.
And this table, well, this is basically the chemical arsenal laid bare. It's like the case file on our poisons. You've got cinnabar with its mercury going straight for the nervous system. Then you have red lead, which is sneaky. It mimics calcium to get into your bones and your reproductive system. And we can't forget the foundation they used, white lead, or cerussa. That stuff corroded the skin while delivering its own payload of poison. Each one was a different line of attack on the body.
So here's what's absolutely crucial to understand. This wasn't some dramatic one-time kiss of death. Not at all. This was a systemic breakdown. It was a poisoning that happened in slow motion, day by day, layer by layer, over a woman's entire adult life.
And what's so fascinating here is how this just shatters a common myth. You know that idea of a fast-acting poison lipstick? That usually gets traced back to an old Egyptian recipe that used bromine. But that is not what was happening in Rome. The Roman reality was so much more insidious. It was a chronic, heavy metal poisoning that didn't kill you dramatically. Instead, it led to this horrifying gradual slide into madness, infertility, and eventually total organ failure.
And let's talk about that madness. There's a neurological disorder from chronic mercury exposure called erethism. It was nicknamed Mad Hatter's disease later on. Just try to imagine a Roman noblewoman, someone known for her grace and composure, who suddenly becomes pathologically shy and anxious. She starts having these violent, irrational mood swings. Her hands start to tremble uncontrollably. Her gums bleed, her teeth start falling out. To the people around her, she would just look like a hysterical, decaying woman. No one would ever suspect the cause was the very makeup she was wearing to maintain her status.
So this brings us to the biggest question of all. If this stuff was so dangerous, why? Why on earth did they do it? And the answer, it's not just simple vanity. It's way more complicated. It's rooted in this complex social and political trap that left Roman women with really no good options.
Check out this timeline, because it shows how cosmetics became intensely political. Back in 1950 BC, Roman women actually took to the streets. They staged these massive public protests to get rid of a law, the Lex Oppia, that restricted their use of luxuries. And you know what? They won. After that, using expensive exotic cosmetics like Cinnabar wasn't just a beauty choice anymore. It became a political statement, a powerful symbol of their hard-won economic freedom.
But it was a total double bind. On one hand, you had male writers, satirists like Juvenal, who constantly mocked women for wearing makeup. They'd say their faces were unnatural, that they dripped with dyes. But in that exact same society, a woman who started to look her age, with wrinkles and sunspots, had zero social value. She was basically invisible. So the makeup was a shield against social death, even if it was speeding up their actual physical death.
And this is where it turns into a truly vicious cycle. A woman would apply white lead foundation to get that pale look everyone wanted. But the lead itself was corrosive. It would literally eat away at her skin, causing blemishes and scars. And the only solution to hide that new damage? You guessed it, apply even thicker layers of the exact same poison that caused it. It was a terrifying feedback loop of self-destruction.
So, we've looked at the history books, we've looked at the chemistry. For our final piece of evidence, we have to turn to the one witness that can't lie, the human skeleton. Modern archaeology gives us the smoking gun.
400 parts per million. Let that sink in. That is the level of mercury found in the bones of high-status women who were buried near those Spanish mines that supplied Rome with its cinnabar. To put that into perspective for you, modern science considers even tiny, trace amounts of mercury to be highly toxic. These women were just saturated with it.
And this brings us to a very famous case. Poppaea Sabina, the wife of Emperor Nero. She was legendary for her obsession with beauty. Now, history tells us she died when Nero kicked her while she was pregnant, but a modern look through the lens of toxicology suggests something else. Her body was likely already wrecked by years of mercury and lead poisoning. That would have made her pregnancy incredibly high risk, her body extremely fragile. The kick might not have been the cause of death, but just the final insult to a system that was already on the brink of complete collapse. So, the case is pretty much closed. The Roman matron, in her quest for beauty and status, was the unwitting victim of her own cosmetic kit. And this whole story leaves us with a really haunting question to think about today. What modern beauty standards, what products that we all use without a second thought, might have hidden consequences that we'll only discover generations from now?
Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. What are your thoughts on that final question? I'd love to hear them, so let me know in the comments below. And hey, if you found this as fascinating as I did, please don't forget to like this and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories behind the history we think we know.